She asked, what are one of the most common misperceptions about Iraqi people that Americans have? Um, there's two things that I've kind of narrowed in on as I've been having these conversations around the country. One is, this is a misperception. Iraqis are nothing like me. It's just, they're totally different. There's this like totally other thing over there. It's because they're Iraqi, yes. It's because they're Muslim, yes. They're nothing like me. And when you look at the headlines and you look at what they've experienced, it can be really easy to arrive at that conclusion that they're violent, they're caught up in a cycle of corruption and violence, and this obviously would corrode everything in their lives. That is, in some ways, not at all true. That at the base level of it all, we're all aiming for the same kind of stuff: security, safety. We want our kids to be able to walk to school in a way that doesn't make us all feel threatened and leave us nervous all day long. Food security, we want to be able to get the food that we need to keep our family well fed. Economic prosperity. All these kind of things are actually things that make us very much the same. The religious, eternal dynamic of it all, they're asking questions about the future and where we go after we die, especially when you see death all around you. Those questions become incredibly salient. They're not extracurricular activities to ask what happens when we die. I mean, we have to ask these questions to make sense of little Ahmed who got shot on the street today. So faith and religion and the way that affects our life, those are all things that we very much share in common. That's a misperception then to say Iraqis are nothing like us. The second would be to think in some sense that Iraqis are just like us. And what I mean by that is Iraq has been through some really unique things that are not true to every other country, things that are not true to us. And when we try and overlay our ethics and our morals and our stories into a place that has been so deeply affected for decades by different factors that we've never had to live under, it just doesn't work. Our blueprints for so much of life don't work when you try and lay them over someone else's reality. And so you go back as far as you want, but I tend to go back to the 70s and the rise of Saddam Hussein and some of the amazing things he did, and then some of the ill-advised things he did. And then as he got into wars and drained the country's coffers, then he did things that were not even ill-advised. They were just crazy and dictatorial. And the way the American government and other Western powers played into that, those are unique. Those are not things that are true of every country. The chemical warfare is not true of every country. An 8-year civil war that might have claimed 1 million lives on both sides, Iran-Iraq war that might have claimed 1 million lives on both sides. There's not a lot of wars that can come anywhere close to claiming those kind of casualties. 13 years of economic sanctions from the UN. There's not a lot of countries that have been under some kind of violent, crippling regime like that. 2 or 3 distinct bombing campaigns against Iraq by America and other Western powers. I mean, all these things add up to make a very unique situation in Iraq that needs to be thought of and considered uniquely. So in that sense, Iraqis are not like us, and it can require from me and remind me that I need a special amount of grace and understanding sometimes that I'm not otherwise willing to give when I just think that they should behave by my blueprint.